Bill Bronchick, welcome to the show, sir. Thanks for taking some time. And I've been looking forward to this for quite some time because I know we talked just a tiny bit for the show. But, you know, really, if it wasn't for your YouTube videos, not just me, but I think a lot of people would have no clue on what they were doing. And maybe even to a point where maybe they could figure it out, but not do it the right way, right? Because a little background for my audience, if you don't know Bill, he's an absolute, if you go on YouTube and just look up Attorney Bill Bronchick or William Bronchick, and he's got a catalog of videos that these probably would be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of content and material that he put online before it was really cool. I mean, Bill, this was like, when did you even think about putting this stuff online and why?
Well, I've been online with my website since 98.
Oh my God.
So I started on YouTube, I think about 12 years ago. So some of those pictures, I look much younger and handsomer. So.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
All right. So, I just did it, just to educate people. And, who knew that I would get probably 3 to 5 emails and calls a day off of that. And it wasn't intentional. It was just, hey, let me make some videos and put them out there for people. And the next thing I know, I've got 15,000 subscribers. I've got, 50, 60, 70,000 views on some of my videos. And, people seem to like them. They're very low budget, as you can see. I just got a whiteboard and an iPhone.
That's all you needed. That's all you needed.
That's all you need. I'm just there for the content. And I'm pretty straightforward with my presentation. I keep it simple because I have a simple mind myself. So I need to break it down so I can understand it and then convey it in simple terms to other people.
Yeah, I think that was why it resonated with me so well, is because it was so simple. And I'm a visual learner. So having that whiteboard, again, this is stuff that, people weren't talking about though. Right. I mean, sub to lease options, these creative deals in ways of making a deal work. I think that was, in my opinion, you were a pioneer and still are, right? But I really think that, and I was saying this to you earlier, you didn't get enough credit. I don't think you still don't get enough credit for what you did.
Some people, if someone plagiarizes me, I will get upset. But if they plagiarize a little from everybody, that's research. So there's nothing much about that.
Sure. Well, I did say in one of my videos, and we're live on one of our upstate New York real estate investor groups. I stole that 555 rule, but at least I gave you credit. And I said, I learned this from Bill Bronchick. So
I got it from Herman Cain. He was 999.
I love it. I love it. So for those who don't know, obviously, on YouTube, you have, like I said, an unbelievable catalog of information. Could you give us maybe a 15, 20, 30 second, just kind of who you are, what you do, and why don't you give us something like that, Bill?
Yeah. I've been practicing law for 31 years. I've been in mostly real estate. I've been a real estate investor for about 28 years of that time. It didn't take me long to figure out that I was on the wrong side of the closing table because my checks were the smallest. So I decided to start working on passive income, not just earned income. I mean, I charge $400 an hour, and that seems like a lot, but it doesn't matter whether it's $20 an hour or $400 an hour or $1,000 an hour. You still have to work in exchange for money. And I don't want to do that my whole life. I enjoy what I do, and I do still charge clients by the hour on occasion, but I only take cases and matters that I enjoy. I don't have to do it because I have my real estate that pays me every month consistently. That is a way that I don't have to change hours for dollars.
Was there like an aha moment when you were practicing that you go, I got to start doing this? I mean, what was
my first closing? I remember it. They were passing around papers, and I didn't know what the heck was going on. They didn't teach you this in law school, and I noticed something when the checks started getting passed around. Real estate agents, title person, seller, mortgage broker, everybody got a nice check, and then my check was like $750. And I said, I did the most work here, and I'm the most educated guy in the room. There's something wrong here. So I decided to get on the other side of the table and start getting involved. And the seller was a guy who came here from India with nothing. 10 years earlier, he was a multimillionaire. And I said, can I take you out to lunch? And he became my mentor.
Wow. That's awesome. So what was your, I guess, when you get into it, you're figuring out, and then you do what? You buy like a single family house? Was that like okay.
I started out simple, buying houses with using lease options, wholesaling. And then I started to buy and keep houses, multifamily, commercial. And I flipped a lot of houses. Of course, I wrote a book on flipping, 2 books on flipping properties, a total of 6 published books that are available on, your major booksellers. And I was president of the Colorado Real Estate Investors Association for 17 years. I've spoken all over the country, just about every RIA, and spoken for other big names, Get Motivated, and big audiences up to 15,000 people. But I really enjoy, just the basic stuff. I love doing this and talking to people and influencing people's lives for the better.
And I can attest, you did for me, and for my partner as well, because I remember sending him your videos. Literally, we're in the office next to each other, and I go, hey, you know that thing that we've been thinking about, like the creative finance, and like, how do we listen? Watch this video, and I just remember it was like light bulbs went on for both of us, and obviously changed our life. So what's funny is that we're in 2 states that I think are really tough for landlords right now. And that's, at least in New York, it's super tough. Yeah. But I saw that you were pretty much you've been an advocate for landlords when a lot of people aren't in Colorado. What do you think is going on? Or is there a light at the end of the tunnel, do you think, for us?
No, there are way more tenant voters than there are landlord voters. So the government has gone on the warpath against landlords. It started with COVID, but at least in my state, it used to be very landlord friendly. Remember, I come from New York. I used to evict tenants who are rent controlled, and it's impossible in New York City. So when I came to Colorado in '93, it was like the Wild West. You give 3 days notice, and then that's it. You go to court in 3 weeks and you get an eviction. There's no order to show cause. There's no last minute money. Once the 3 days is up, you can refuse it. And there was no excuse unless it was something egregious the landlord did. And now they changed 3-day notice to 10-day notice. You have to take the rent all the way up until the judgment, just like in New York. You can't charge a late fee till the 15th. I mean, it's like crazy things, and it's just over. And rental registration of your units with the city, paying into an attorney fund. I mean, they just went on the warpath against landlords. They even City of Denver tried to do a proclamation of rent is not due. Period. And,
oh wow.
Yeah, and the governor said, who's a lawyer, and a very liberal guy, by the way, said, I can't do this. I can't sign an executive order canceling rent. It's a private contract. Unconstitutional, but they try. So, this has been open season on landlords, and I don't understand why, because most landlords, including myself, have been pretty fair to tenants with COVID, working out payment plans, taking payments over time, and not raising rents. I mean, we work with people. For the most part, most landlords are working with people, but now what you're getting is frustrated landlords who haven't been able to evict for over a year and still can't evict.
Okay, they still can't evict in Colorado, Bill?
No, they're eating it for over a year and a half, and which is an opportunity, I think, for investors, because motivated landlords are a place to buy properties. So I think a lot of landlords are going to dump properties and just say, this is ridiculous. My value of my property is appreciated so much, and I can't get rent, so I'm just going to sell it. And what that does is it dries up supply in an already tight market for tenants and just makes rents go higher, vacancies go lower, and make it worse for tenants.
Yeah, we don't do a great job, Bill, as landlords, I guess, in the sense of that for broadcasting the good of what we do, right? We don't have the best branding as landlords, right?
We're monopoly men, right? With just
yeah.
Boardwalk and Park Place, and we just collect $200 and pass go.
Right.
So we have to get the word out. I started a landlords association about 2 years ago in Colorado,
Okay.
which has been good. Well, we haven't been able to have live meetings, unfortunately. Everything's online, but I've been interviewed probably 10 times by local news. Whenever there's a new anti-landlord proclamation, they interview me, and I give the word out. So that's, people have to do that. They have to organize as landlords and get the word out.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. We need to organize, and that's part of this Facebook group that we're broadcasting right now, the Upstate New York Real Estate Investor Group, is to get more people going. Listen, this isn't everybody's thing, is like getting together and talking. I mean, I guess a lot of landlords are busy, right? They don't always have the time to do some of the stuff that tenants can, but it's super important. So, that's one of our big pushes is we need to organize. We need to get better at communication. We got to talk about the good that we're doing. Because Bill, you're right. We're the majority of landlords, right? We're not in the business of kicking people out, right?
No. I rarely kick people out. I usually, if they can't pay, I work something out, give them cash for keys, give them a truck, get them on their way, try to help them out. It's very rare we do a full out eviction where we throw somebody's stuff on the curb. Very rare.
Right. Very rare do I think, with good cause anyways, where someone wants someone out because they weren't paying. The 99.9% of our evictions and the people that I know as evictions, it's just been because they haven't paid at all.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
So do I think good cause is important? Yeah, I think a good cause eviction is important because, again, there are situations where you might have like a duplex and one side is just absolutely causing the other side a lot of harm and problems, and it's making living impossible. So how can you not get that person out? So we could go crazy talking about landlord laws, but I didn't know that you were in New York City. I thought you were always in Colorado. What brought you to Colorado?
I grew up in New York. I went to Stony Brook. In 93, I visited Colorado for skiing and said, I'm out of here. This is awesome. It was the time I remember I hit my breaking point when I went to buy some spray paint at a hardware store and it was locked up. You had to be 21 to buy it. That was Mayor Dinkins' proclamation because, they didn't want kids buying spray paint and spray painting all over the place.
Wow.
So I got to get out of this city.
That's very interesting. So you were there then early on, Denver, when it wasn't the hot market that it was for the past, 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it was just starting to blossom. It was recovering from the bust of the oil bust of the 80s and the savings and loan crisis. Market rents were nothing. You could buy houses for 10 grand back then. And I remember downtown Denver, which is now one of the nicest cities in the country. We used to buy houses on a credit card. On an Amex, I bought a house for 7 grand and flipped it for 14. And that house right now is worth probably $500,000.
I was going to say
$500,000.
It's probably insane. So you have a portfolio in Denver. Okay, that you have there. I got to ask you this because what got you thinking? Because obviously, you have a strong. If you worked as an attorney, you'd think strong W-2. I can just buy houses the old-fashioned way. Why did you start thinking lease options and all that? Was it because that's the only way I could do it, or was it just what got you thinking in creative finance ways? Was there somebody that you saw that was doing it in Colorado? And you go, man, that's the move. Like, what got you thinking that way?
I was familiar with this stuff. I shared an office with some commercial real estate lawyers in New York, and I was familiar with a lot of the concepts in commercial real estate, but people weren't applying them to residential. The stuff with the creative financing stuff and subject to and wraparounds and leases and options, that was a little more common in commercial.
Really?
Not so common in residential. So I just borrowed the concepts and brought them over to residential. And when I got started, investor interest rates were close to 10% too. So that's another reason why I stuck with lease options. I mean, I took over properties subject to that had 12% loans from the 80s, and then still made money. I just flipped them.
Right.
Couldn't rent them for a positive cash flow of 12%.
No.
But I just found creative ways to do it, just because being self-unemployed. self-employed.
Yeah.
It was very difficult back then. Banks are not as loose as they are now. They didn't have stated income loans and things like that. So
Okay.
it was a matter of necessity because of interest rates were high and because financing was hard to get.
Okay.
And then fast forward past 2000, between 2000 and 2008, anybody with a pulse can get a loan. And I did it quite a bit with 10% down. I rarely did stated income loans because they were terrible loans. I never bought at the top of the market hoping it would go up. So when the market busted, I didn't lose anything because I didn't play the speculation game that if I buy now, it'll go higher. I never did do that. I never did that. I never will do that.
Right.
You can do that. You might as well just buy gold. It's easier.
Right. Yes. No, right. And because one of the things that I'm looking at now is we're always have a wholesaler's mindset when we're buying stuff, right? Whether we're flipping it or whether we're going to burr it, whatever. What do you think is coming down the line with the housing market? Do you think we got another 2-3 years of good times? Or, I mean, Colorado and Rochester, obviously, or New York and Colorado are different, but still very warm markets right now. What are you seeing?
Well, I don't see any change until at least 2023 because interest rates are low artificially, and they will keep it that way through the election year. That's what an incumbent does. So through next November, at least, I think the Fed is going to have pressure from the White House to keep interest rates low, which props up the stock market and the economy, which is not doing so great right now because of supply issues. So real estate is supply and demand, and supply is still extremely low in most markets. Most people are not selling their houses. Most people who own their house are 60 and over, and they're not moving.
Right.
They're staying. So there's just an artificially, I wouldn't say artificially completely low supply, but there is some artificial demand because super low interest rates encourage people to buy. So you have increasing demand, very limited supply, and that's just causing the nonsense of people overbidding houses and selling them in a day or two. And I think that will continue to probably at least 2023. From there, it's anybody's guess. If the Democrats get $15 trillion spent in the next 2 years, is China going to say, nice try, we want your T-bills to be 6%? Because for the risk of you guys going into default, and that would, of course, put pressure on mortgage rates. Just understand, if mortgage rates now are under 3, if they double, that's half the buying power. And double is only 5.6% interest or 5.5% interest, which is still historically low.
Right.
Historically, average interest rates are in the 6.5 range over the last 100 years. So the low interest rates is fueling demand, and the low supply is forcing prices. So demand could slough off for a number of reasons. It's not because of lack of people. It's just lack of ability to buy, and less house you can buy with lower interest rates. They change the tax laws. Let's say Congress decides to make it so that you don't get your 121 exclusion anymore, and when you sell your house, you got to pay capital gains. That's going to pull people out of the buyer's market and more into the renter's market. If interest rates are double they are now in the next 5 years, that less buyers. So I don't see a crash. In 2008, we had a way oversupply of houses. The builders went crazy and built and built and built and built. So, for example, in my market, which is normally 20 to 25,000 houses for sale, we were up to 32 by 2008. Now we're around 3,500.
Yeah,
which is just nuts.
And nuts.
I mean, the only house you could buy, unless you want to get into a bidding war, is a new house. And at the top of the market, that's not the smartest thing to do. No,
it really isn't. And I think that's, some of the scary things that I'm thinking about is what is going to happen with the new laws. What are your, I don't even know really what's going on with the 1031 exchange. Is that something that's going to be taken out? Is that, no. Okay. So we're good there.
They're in committee with a lot of these things. So they're trying to take away 1031 exchanges. They're trying to take away self-directed IRAs. They're trying to, anything to stick it to the rich. So the question is, will that get to the floor of Congress? Will it get through the Senate? And those are sort of, out of the normal fringe type of propositions that won't. Now, will we see things like higher tax rates for the wealthy? Yes. Could we see higher corporate rates? Absolutely. Could we see higher capital gains rates, maybe 25% instead of 20? Possibly. But they're only going to affect people who have adjusted grosses over 400, which doesn't affect a lot of real estate investors who have a lot of depreciation deductions, unless you have a year in which you sell 2 or 3 properties and that pops you into earning 800 that year, then you're going to get hit hard.
Right. Okay. So probably be okay. The normal it's going to.
I don't think they're going to completely annihilate like they did in with the Tax Reform Act of 86 or 87, where they took away the depreciation and they reworked it. So it didn't make sense just to buy properties if you were a doctor or dentist to lose money to have a write-off anymore. And that in the savings loan crisis is what caused that crash.
Okay.
I see a flattening for sure in a lot of markets, but it's really, real estate is not a national thing. It's market by market, neighborhood by neighborhood. And the only thing I said, with the exception of tax policy and interest rates and maybe some sort of regulations that are really onerous, most of it is just going to be local supply and demand.
Okay. That makes me feel a little bit better because, I hope the party's been good. The party's been good for a couple, for my whole see, there's the crazy part though. This has been my whole career. Okay. I've been doing it since 2014. You really couldn't make too many mistakes, right? In regards that things have kept kind of going up.
Yeah,
right.
That happens if you're in for the long game. You got few enough wrinkles that you could survive another 3, ups and downs. But in the long run, the next up is higher than the last up. So it goes up and down, not like this, but more like on an upward trajectory.
Okay.
Almost without exception, we're going to see that in most markets in the country. Now we have long-term trends, people moving out of big cities, not just because of COVID, but because now telecommuting is a new thing. We're going to see people moving out of the Northeast, continuing to move to Florida and Texas and, the Southern and Midwestern states. We'll continue to see, and people moving out of California in droves because it's impossible to live there.
Yeah, I feel bad. I feel bad for my friends that are investors out there. It's a nightmare. I mean, it's a nightmare here too, really.
You could be worse. You could be downstate New York. You could be in New York or Long Island.
Right. Completely different.
Really got hit hard by COVID. Hard. Whereas upstate, is people are moving out and saying, well, wait a minute, I don't need to go to the office every day. So I could live 2 hours out of Manhattan. If I only have to telecommute and then work maybe 2 days a week, it's not so bad.
Yeah, I'm always curious about how it's working for people, like especially larger multifamily, like syndicators who put together these deals where it's so like it seems like it's overpaid for a lot of these multifamily properties, right? And if people aren't paying their rent, I gotta imagine these are some really tough deals for these investors that put their money into these syndications. And but I don't know if you any thought on like what's going on with the commercial side. I mean, not just multifamily, but even just like commercial space. Like, how is that looking for the future?
Again, it's all about location. For the most part, office is in real trouble. Just because a lot of businesses went under and didn't pay. And then a lot of businesses going forward, including myself, are going, well, my lease is up in April. Should I renew this suite that's costing me $4,000 a month? Or should I get into a 2 office, 1 reception, $1,500 a month office and just rotate my employees? And that's a long-term trend. I think more people are starting to come back to using offices, but I think more than half of businesses are going to continue telecommuting for the indefinite future because it makes financial sense.
Yeah. Can you guys all work from home pretty much, like you and your team?
We do, but I mean, I go to the office, just to make my face shown a couple of days a week, and everybody else, and we have an office meeting once a week, but we telecommute, and I telecommute because I travel a lot, and most of my clients, with very few exceptions, don't necessarily want to come in the office and meet.
Okay. Yeah, because that's one of the things is I know a lot of people obviously are not having to go to the office right now. And especially it's a weird spot because I feel like I never would have jumped ship going full time if I could have done my job and work from home. Right. It was one of the reasons like people were starting to notice I wasn't always in the office, or I was leaving the office a lot.
Right.
So I got a lot of friends that are new investors or starting out. And, actually, I'm going to take a sidestep here for a second, because for the newer people, I guess when you started investing in real estate, you've seen a lot of different cycles. Mm-hmm. What would you say to these people now that are just starting their careers? I guess if you could have maybe done something different when you were brand new, what would you kind of give people as hey, here's what I would have done different, or here's what I would do if I were you?
I would hold more. Some of my best deals I made were between 2010 and 11, 12 in the bottom of the market. And people thought I was nuts buying up houses, but I was buying houses for 70, 80, 90 grand that are now worth 400 and tripled in rents too. It was tough for a while. I mean, I was feeding these properties every month for about 2 or 3 years, and until it finally got to break even, and then got better. If you have a partner or you have another source of income that you could dip into, or other reserves, you could play that game. You could buy when things are bad and then go up. I think the opportunity now is interest rates. If you have the ability to qualify for a 3.5% loan, do it. I normally don't like going to a bank and putting my name on a mortgage, but at these rates, it's not even debt anymore. It's an asset. When interest rates go up to 5 or 6, having a 3% loan is an asset.
Absolutely.
Not liability. And your payment is fixed, and inflation is good for landlords. It's welcome because rents go up. Right. So property taxes, but if your mortgage is fixed at a low rate, you're good. If you have to buy in the future, if you're thinking, well, I'll sit on the sidelines and wait a year or two, and then when all this, these foreclosures process, I'll buy some cheap properties. Yeah, maybe you get 10 or 15 or 20% discount when that happens. But if interest rates have doubled by then, have you really saved money if you're planning on holding for the long term?
Yeah, I love that. That's great advice. I don't think people are hearing that enough about, hey, hold on if you can, right? If you have the ability to buy and hold, and I think there's enough strategies out there where you can learn to do that. Mm-hmm. It seems like that is the no-brainer. A lot of the older folks that I know, that just have seen it, have been there, done it. They just say, keep buying.
Yeah.
Just
it's
keep
like
buying.
Dollar cost averaging. Real estate in the long run consistently goes up at a better pace of inflation, depending on your area, depending on where you buy and what you buy. And they produce income. So it's like healthy dividends of a stock. And if you wake up in the morning and Iran has the bomb, your house is not going to drop 50% in value like your stock will.
Yeah.
And you can do something about it. So if things go wrong, you could put sweat equity in and say, I'm going to build more rooms, or I'm going to finish out a basement and get more rent.
No, that's all. Yeah, no, that's absolutely that makes so much sense. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, Bill, and I was going to maybe do this off camera, but I know that what's helped me a ton has been coaching and or even masterminds. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on those?
I think for the right person who's got the right mindset, it's very helpful. I've coached a lot of people, and I've been coached by other people. Some people are frankly uncoachable. I'm the 7th coach they've hired and expecting something to be different when they're not different.
Right.
But most people, I think, when they make the investment, they're doing it not just financially, but psychologically, they're ready to take a next step. Because you can make a lot of mistakes if you don't know what you're doing.
Right.
It has a high learning curve. I compare it to the stock market, which has a low learning curve, but it's not consistent. And there's nothing you can do about an investment. And you can't go knocking on people's doors and say, do you have any Google stock for sale? I can buy it for cheap. Right. You can't do that. You got to buy it at market and hope it goes up. For real estate, you can buy it below its current market value. You can improve the value. You can refinance it. You can change the zoning. You can do a lot of things to real estate to make it more profitable. But there is a learning curve that you need to get over. And once you get over that learning curve, over that hump, then you don't really make a lot of mistakes. Real estate becomes a little more smooth sailing from there, where stock market, you never know. I mean, there's just so many factors that'll affect your investment. If you've ever read the book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers, he talks about the 10,000 hour rule.
Yes.
Where you have to spend 10,000 hours mastering your trade to become an expert. Well, if you did it 10 hours a week part-time, that would take you about 20 years. So hiring a coach, what it does is it leverages that time and that experience to compress the learning curve. So you're not making mistakes, for the first 2 or 3 or 4 years. You're avoiding the big, costly, expensive mistakes.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think it's depending on the person, right? If you're someone who takes it, not that it's taking it seriously. It's almost like, are you yourself before you can worry about a business? You're yourself as a business. You got to look at yourself as a business. Are you running right? Right? Are you all there? Or are you taking care of your bills? Are things, before you can jump into something, I always thought hey, before I'm doing something else, am I good? Is that, it don't have to be perfect, but do I have a lot of my stuff together? Am I serious about it? Do I want it enough? Mm-hmm. Because if you're going to hire the coach, then they're going to boost you up. So you got to be ready for that. And if you're not, it's not a good time. You need more time, maybe on YouTube University.
Sure. And even if you get to a point where you're doing okay, you don't have to answer to anybody. So there's no one to push you to go harder. That's what the coach can do. And a coach can hold you accountable. Yeah. When you're not going to hold yourself accountable. It's also a set of eyes seeing outside in what you can't see from the inside. It's do you play golf?
No.
Have you ever been to Top Golf?
Yes.
All right. So you know how the general thing works, right? The ball goes like we call Army golf, left, right, left, right. And if someone stands behind you, they could see what you can't see standing over the ball. So, and me too, I'm a really good golfer, but sometimes I'm hitting the ball wrong and someone will come up and just say, look, just, this one little thing, he'll put a club down and my feet, aligned with my feet and say, look where you're aiming. And I can't see when I'm standing over the ball out of my left eye that I'm aiming 10 yards left or 10 yards right, or that I'm taking the club back, a little too far open or a little too far inside, or, if the club face is square at impact, the ball goes straight. If it's 1 degree open, it's 10 yards to the right. And you can't see that unless someone is standing behind you. That's what a coach can do.
Yeah, I love that because you're right. Because there's the blind spots that we have, right? I was just watching an unbelievable YouTube video. Patrick Bet-David is someone I follow as well. Valuetainment, you probably know. And that was one of the things is some of the people that are high performers, right? And if we're in this world, a lot of us are high performers or trying to be high performers. And, he said something that was really interesting. He said that you think you know something. So the people who think they know it, they're those are the toughest guys to get them to see, right? If you're I know Bill, yeah, but I know Bill, I know. It's oh man, those are tough guys to coach because you got to go in not having an ego, and that can be tough for a lot of people.
Pride is something that will bury you.
Yeah, 100% agree.
Humble. There's always something you can learn from somebody else.
Yeah, I think that I think that's 100% true. Bill, I didn't want to take up a lot of your time. I just wanted to have people kind of see who you are. I wanted people to go on YouTube and watch your videos because of how much they've helped me. And people are always asking in the group, hey, how does this work and how does this work? Well, it's simple. Go to YouTube, type in Bill Bronchick, and just watch what you put together all those years. Are you still putting content on YouTube?
I am. Yeah. I do almost every week a weekly webinar for an hour that I put up a replay there. And it's just YouTube/Bronchick.
Okay.
It's an easy way to find it.
Okay.
I'm the only one with the last name. So
yeah.
So yeah, I have tons of great videos there, and they're all organized by topic.
Okay, all by topic. And what else? What else can people find you on? Do you have a podcast or anything? I couldn't find anything.
Podcast on Apple. Yeah,
okay, great.
iTunes. It's called the Legal Wiz Podcast, and I have
that's right.
LegalWiz.com.
LegalWiz.com. Okay, Bill, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate you. You've really you changed my life for the better. And I know that other people that watch you will do the same. So thank you. And thanks, group. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you.